This little talk is going to combine some of my favourite chords in music with a little harmony lesson. Please don't worry if you don't understand everything about the harmony. The harmony nomenclature is so complex that it sounds as if it's been sent just to confuse people and impress people. Please don't worry. We understand certain things of what we hear and not other things. And if we love what we're hearing about, we then catch up later. And that's what I'd like to happen, really. Now, one of the important things about chords is that people didn't discover that chords worked. For a long time in music, we just had a single line of music. But let's first of all take the octave. Why does that work with that work? Think of sound as lots of jiggling air molecules, but they jiggle beautifully, and they jiggle against each other because they are springy. And if you have that note, they jiggle quite fast. But if you sing if you also sing that one, octave above, they jiggle twice as fast. So you get tum, tum, as well as tum, tum, tum. But that makes a nice little dance together, and our ear recognises that the molecules are working nicely together. So an octave is nice, pure. Fifth, you get one of them jiggles 3 times for every 2 times the other one jiggles. 3 against 2. Again, we notice the regularity about that. We observe the regularity about that. And that's why a fifth is good. A major third is 5 for every 4 jiggles in this spongy air. And a minor third is 6 for every 5. They're all lovely ratios with each other. Compromises are made for the piano a little bit. But essentially, certainly that's what we do in choirs and orchestras. Occasionally people say, oh, I don't want to study about music because it'll spoil my spontaneity and my love for music. I disagree totally. If you understand about it, it helps. The more I understand about music, the more I love it. And that has gone on and on and on. So we have pure sounds and we have scrunchy sounds. We also have this. First, third, fifth. Is it called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? 3 for every 2. The molecules are jiggling with each other and enjoying the dance. 5 for every 4. They are as well, a bit more complicated, but they're enjoying it. And the main chords we use are first 1, chord 4, again like that, and chord 5. 1, 4, and 5. Now, I thought, let's do a simple 1, 4, and 5 harmonisation first. I couldn't think of anything. Not that it was really splendid. All I could think of was and of course when we actually play it, we don't put the chord necessarily there. We might put it there. But if you have time to look down the keyboard, you will see that that's there, C's, that's there, and an E's there. So they're arranged beautifully like that. We often have 4-part chords. I did find one place where it is done absolutely beautifully. The amazing musician, Arvo Pärt, I really love Tribute to Caesar. It tells a story. Look up all these things on Spotify afterwards. Tribute to Caesar is amazing. And he goes from pure chord, concord, to more scrunchy chord, in the way I said about jiggling molecules. My father first explained sound to me by talking about jiggling molecules when he bought me an army surplus microphone. and he explained how sound from my mouth would be converted into electric current in the microphone. And I've always remembered that explanation as a nice, simple, straightforward one. Pärt, Arvo Pärt, amazing storytelling. At the end, when the Pharisees had challenged him and failed, and he had a wonderful reply to them, they marveled. And he simply uses this. So, like this. And actually he has a bass going on the bottom C at the end. But a soprano holds that C on. Absolutely beautiful. And then the final cadence, and went their way. Beautiful. If you don't know it, do listen to Tribute to Caesar. It's quite wonderful. Now, to go from scrunch to pure, from scrunch to pure, is a kind of journey. And I know of nowhere better to explain this than the wonderful prelude Bach wrote to the 48. Bach, being obsessive like nobody else, wrote a prelude and a fugue in every single major and minor key twice. He was an amazingly obsessive person, and to our great profit. B flat minor is wonderful. It's like this. Now that chord I love. And this one too. Out of context, it's just a sort of scrunchy chord, but doesn't actually take you anywhere. But in the actual piece by Bach, it takes you on a journey. I've been fascinated by that chord of Bach, because that is pretty modern, 20th century that. Actually, we can find it also in the 19th century, Tchaikovsky. Last movement of Pathetique Symphony. Talking of Tchaikovsky, how about this chord? Now, you may not think it's much to write home about when you first hear it, but it's the beginning of Romeo and Juliet, and I've always liked this moment, and it's the moment that Tchaikovsky really tells you, this is Tchaikovsky composing. Romeo and Juliet, friar theme, of course. The friar happens at the beginning and at the end. And this is to set the kind of ecclesiastical tone of it at the beginning. Most of these are 3-part chords that you'll hear, meaning they've got 3 different chord notes. Some of them are repeated, but essentially they're 3 different ones, until my favourite chord in this opening, which is the one that tells you it's by Tchaikovsky. Here we go. And it's 2 clarinets and 2 bassoons. Beautiful sound. Wonderful. And that chord for me is Tchaikovsky. And often the soupy chord is just before the dominant. You don't have to understand this, but just that's a half close we haven't finished. There's something else to come. Do listen to it if you don't know it. What happens next, it immediately takes us into the 19th century, but it expands harmony beyond what you could imagine is possible. Now, talking of expanding harmony beyond what you think is possible, what about old Richard Strauss and Rosenkavalier? There's a moment in Rosenkavalier, well, there are lots of moments in Rosenkavalier which always send me, but this one is quite wonderful. Now, there's the orchestral introduction when all manner of hanky-panky's been going on, and at the end of the orchestral introduction, we have the Marschallin, her theme, just demonstrating her passion, and it's this. Oh, listen out for the pedal. Often harmony has something binding it together. We like home. We like something familiar. And if this note carries on underneath the rest of the chords, it gives us a kind of root. So listen to this. It's that moment I absolutely adore. And it's been in E major, so we've got E major settled. And that also, that note, that chord has an E in it, which is absolutely lovely. Now, one of the ways in which music is made really poignant is major minor. Okay, here we go. D major, minor, I have done a talk entirely about major and minor juxtapositions and comparisons in music, and it seeks out some of the most beautiful ideas in music. I'm just going to show you one of them, and that is Gute Nacht from Winterreise by Schubert. It's a shockingly sad story of departure and farewell and grief at the disappearance of a loved one. But why does hearing sad music cheer us up? Why, when we hear sad music, do we often feel better? I can't explain it except to say that music gets right down in our emotional centre and churns it all up and says, look, what have we here? Come on, things are all right, really. And for me, J.S. Bach is the best of all at saying things are all right, really. And often it all... Barmadish. But anyway, I'm talking about chords, not beautiful pieces. And all of that's beautiful. Every single chord in that piece is beautiful. But there's a wonderful poem by Walter de la Mare, set by Howells, King David. And King David was a sorrowful man. And he wasn't sorrowful about anything in particular, says Walter de la Mare. He just felt sad. Well, that happens to lots of us. We just feel sad for no apparent reason. And he called for his 100 harps. I love the idea that he had 100 harps just there for if he felt sad, come on, But that didn't work, so he threw them out, of course. And he went to the garden, strolled around the garden, and he heard a nightingale singing. And he says, tell me, thou little bird that singest, who taught my grief to thee? And for me, that gets closer to explaining how sad music can help us. Who taught my grief to thee? Who taught you my grief? You understand precisely. But the little bird, in no wise heeded, didn't take any notice because he didn't understand. And the king, in the cool of the moon, hearkened to the nightingale's sorrowfulness till all his own was gone. Amazing. Till all hearkened to the nightingale's sorrowfulness till all his own was gone. Now, Winterreise of Schubert, Gute Nacht, is absolutely amazing piece. It is Gute Nacht, good night, goodbye. Okay, here's the introduction. Okay, I won't try the German. It's the notes that matter. So listen to this. Now, when that happens for a second verse, and then after that, the third verse, the fifth verse, he goes into the major. So, and actually, in a way, it becomes more powerful in the major. Now, I wonder did he think when he started, oh, this is going to be in the major as well, so I'd better make sure I've got a major version? Or did he just do it in the minor, then think, oh, I've got a good idea, and we're going to do it in the major, and then we're going to have that chord. Here it is in the minor. Here it is in the major. Now, I like to call that a dominant seventh in third inversion. In third inversion. Okay. But it's not really the dominant seventh of D major, but that's a seventh anyway, and it's in third inversion. So here's first inversion. Inversion means which note goes at the bottom. There's with the third at the bottom. There's with the fifth at the bottom, and here's the third inversion. ABBA, Waterloo. Same chord. I'm going to do another talk one of these days on the third inversion dominant seventh, because there's so much wonderful music. And there's just time for me to tell you of one of the great chords, which is usually in a minor key. Here's C minor. And it's usually the antepenultimate chord. So there it is. So it's not this, but it's this. It makes it that much more serious and poignant. And I've always loved that, partly because whenever there was a Neapolitan sixth at home, in a piece of music we were playing or on the radio, my father would yell out, "Neapolitan!" from the top of the house, and we all had to join in. The greatest one for me is at the end of the fugue of the Bach Passacaglia in C minor. Passacaglia. Another word for it is a round bass. It just keeps going through the whole thing. And a credible piece of music is woven above while this keeps going. Purcell wrote a couple of stunning ones. But then it goes, not satisfied with having done that, Bach then writes a fugue as well based on it. And it's all in C minor. And by the way, Stokowski, the great conductor and musician, Leopold Stokowski, arranged quite a lot of Bach organ pieces for orchestra. And he was an organist himself originally. And he arranged this for orchestra, and it's absolutely wonderful. So do please listen to it in the Stokowski version if you haven't heard it. Anyway, towards the end, so it's been a fugue and it's getting to the end. And then C major instead of C minor. And then ends, and then no longer are there any E flats till the end. Okay. And then it ends with one of these lovely things which Bach loves doing. But that's to tell you about lots of chords. My favorite chord is this Neapolitan sixth, which is how Neapolitan sixths are done. Anyway, loads more chords which I'd love to tell you about, and that has given me ideas for other talks I will do sometime. But on the powerful Neapolitan sixth, written by the greatest of the lot, J.S. Bach, I will finish. Thank you.